Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright everybody, we're going to get right into it. I have 10 books to talk about today, I believe. One of them, well, a couple of them are rereads, but there were some really great new to me books and a couple to rant about. So we're going to have a great week. Before we get into anything, we just have a little bit of business on the front end. First off, I'm super proud of these. I had a small update to my Etsy shop last weekend, and I have a couple new computer cases in there. So there's this really beautiful flowered one. This is pretty. This fits like a Chromebook, or I mean honestly can fit extra large books too. It's not like you have to use it, but I make these to fit small computers. Really great. I still have one in the beautiful rainbow music notes, which I think is great. This is a great Pride Month one, which I didn't even think of. I've had this in the shop for a while and I just made some new ones of it, but I do have this pattern in all sizes, so that's really cool. And then I still have some of these really pretty patterns. There's this compass one. There's these fit a Kindle or a mass market paperback. And then I did do the Lord of the Rings designs. So there are some that have the one ring on them. I like these too because these ones are definitely like all genders can like these. They're not as girl coded as some of mine are. So there's this one that has kind of like all the characters on it. There's this one that has the some logos from it, and then this one has the ladies of Lord of the Rings on it. So there's always a coupon for my viewers. That is the Book Refuge 10. You'll get 10% off your order, and the Etsy shop is also supports the store and supports the channel and supports my sewing habit, because I do love to sew while I listen to audiobooks. So there are those new ones. If you're interested, just let me know if you have any questions. And then we have 2 new patrons to welcome. So thank you so much. There's a couple of you who joined, who you've been like going through all the backlog of vlogs that I have. I just filmed the 80th vlog that I've been doing in the last 2 years that I've been making vlogs. So you really get kind of from day one of me being my own business, like what this is looking like, which is awesome. You also get to help vote on a book that I read every week, and there are lots of like surprise live chats and stuff like that. So definitely check out my Patreon. And our new members are Elizabeth M and Caitlin J. So thank you both so much for joining. You just really warm my heart and help me feel so loved that you jumped in there. So let's get into the books. I can't wait to talk about some of these. I'm pulling up my notes right now. Don't mind me here. Alrighty. So the first one up that I read was Little Sunshine by Layla Frost. This was on my TBR kind of right away. This was on my TBR for the month because I really liked Little Dove that I read a few years back. Now, to be fair to myself, it's been quite a while since I read that. I didn't even know there would be multiple books in that series. Layla Frost hasn't really put out anything. And then this all of a sudden popped up on my Goodreads because, you know, if you follow authors, like when they have new ones coming, they'll like pop up in your upcoming reads. So that's one of the ways that I know about books that are coming. And this one said it was going to be book 2 in the Black Resorts series, which I was like, oh, okay. So this isn't quite like Mafia, but it is kind of in the casino and hotel and resort, like tycoon stuff. So we are dealing with pretty wealthy men and lots of power that they have. But this story starts out with our heroine, Mila, who is in a really tight spot. Her mother has caused her to lose her job. Her mother is also a thief and just a horrible mother. I don't know another way to say it. She's just not a nice lady. Let's just say it like that. And she causes Mila to lose her job. And so Mila is desperate. She's honestly like starving and not doing well. And she tries to filch a wallet off of a rich guy. And she gets caught by the security there, which Ash is one of those people. He makes her give the wallet back. But he sees how she's not doing well and he wants to help her out, but she runs away because she's scared. And then it leads into this push and pull of like him wanting to care for her, and very quickly it leads to him wanting to be her daddy. And this is a series of daddy kink. It's always very interesting to me when like there's a series that has the same kink, because it's like everyone in the circle is just like in on being a daddy and like, you know, caring for a girl just because his friend did that. Like, I don't understand why he automatically is. I don't know. It's why I'm more like if there's a kink series that we like switch up what the kinks are, you know? I don't know. Like Daisy Jane does that. Each one of her books has kinks are a main focus because that's what she writes, but she changes what they are from thing to thing, which, speaking of Daisy Jane and daddy kink, we'll have one this week. But I don't know. When I first read it, like reading through this, I was okay with it. But honestly, I was less into it when I was reflecting on it, like when I was writing up my stuff, because it just, you know, not all romances or spicy things have to make sense. But like the setup of this one, but either way, he really wants to take care of her. He wants to give her a safe place to live. And so he ends up convincing her to stay there and just like spoiling her. And so it's really a fantasy. There's a lot of aspects about it that are really cute, but it also just like, I don't know, it was tough to believe it at the same time. So when I reviewed it immediately, I did give it a 4-star, but I think I'm probably going to knock it down to a 3.5 just because, yeah, I'm not feeling as great about it when I look back at it. But if you like daddy kink, if you really loved Little Dove, you're going to want to read this no matter what. And, you know, but if you're like me and it's been a long time since you read Little Dove, maybe you've read daddy kink or situations done better than this one's going to be this time. All right, then we had a reread of Honeycut. I also had received the ALC from Must Love Audio for this one. So I only just read this the other week. I reviewed it in that one. This is a 6-star book for me. So go check out that weekly wrap up if you want all the in-depth on this one. But still loved it. I loved listening to the audio. The narrators for this one are Oscar Reyes and Isabel Ruther. They were both very good. I enjoyed their performances. This is super sexy, super erotic. It's has cheating in it. There's MMF that we're building towards. Lots of angst because it's Sierra Simone. So I just really liked it. It gave me all of the feels. And yeah, now we're just waiting for Bitter Burn to come, which is going to be a little while. Okay, then I read Midnight Whispers by P. Rain. And this one is book 3 in the Midnight Manor series, which I have been enjoying quite a bit. This one is the Cinderella retelling. There was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, there was a Rapunzel retelling, and this one is a Cinderella retelling. And did I say Rapunzel? Yeah, Rapunzel was the second one. Yeah. And this one we actually have Cinder, who we've met in the previous books. You should kind of read these in order. They're all like pretty short books, so it's not a big deal to do it. And all of the audios are duet narration, which I love. This one is narrated by Jason Clark and Callie Dalton in duet style, as I said. I got this one from Valentine PR. That's who I've been getting these audios from. But Nero is in the beginning engaged to her stepsister, Maud, who, again, if you read these in order, there's some overlap in the stories. And you saw, well, he was engaged to Maud. We're not supposed to like her. We don't get good vibes from her. But you don't know that Cinder is her stepsister because Maud has kept that a secret. And when Cinder discovers that Maud is cheating on Nero, which again, like, why? Like, why? Makes no sense. She secretly and anonymously sends photos to Nero. So he, of course, breaks up that engagement and he goes to the strip house. What's it called? Strip club. I forgot what it's called. In town. Where Cinder actually works. She makes money and has to give it to her stepmother. So that's always great. But he ends up, he doesn't know that she is the stepsister of his ex-fiance, and he watches her dance and he becomes obsessed with her. And we learn that Nero actually has issues with stalking. Like, he's done it before, and now he becomes obsessed with her and he's stalking her. And his brothers are like, you need to be careful. Don't turn this into a thing again. But it kind of does. And so he starts to fall for her. So anyway, that's basically the setup of that one. When she ends up leaving her stepmother, she doesn't have a place to stay, and she moves in with Nero and everyone at the manor. But it's also like the only way that she knows him is that he was a patron at the strip club. So the leap that she would agree to move into his house, like, is a lot. So this one, I rounded it up to a 4. The narration makes it really easy to swallow it, but again, that logic, it's like, can't we find like a better way to get us in this situation? Because why? I know she was desperate, but like, why would you just agree to move into this stranger's house? Well, granted, she doesn't know he's stalking her, but that's even worse because all she knows is she's only seen him a couple of times while he watches her dance. And yeah, so anyway, 4 stars, I guess. 3 on the spice scale. They do own a sex club, so there's some voyeurism and some sharing that happens. That's what Nero's kink is in this one. And there are some trigger warnings of stalking, drug use, gun violence, and domestic abuse that's in another couple. Okay, next up, I read Love Unwritten, which is out now. I so kindly received both an e-arc and a physical arc from Bloom, so thank you to Bloom. This was one that was on my like most anticipated of the year, even though Love Redesigned is the first Lauren Asher that I really liked. I had read her Dreamland Billionaires and I didn't really care for those men. I really didn't like them. But Love Redesigned was so good. It was all about like the pining and like a slow burn. And this one is the same. This one is an even slower burn. It really is. Like I was saying, I've never read Mariana Zapata, and please don't try to convince me to, because I won't be. Let's just tell everyone. But I've heard a lot about how her slow burn just drives you nuts because you just want everything to like happen and it doesn't. And this one has that really slow burn, but it felt so good, and this was just such an enriching story to me. So, and also look at this cover, y'all. Like, look at this pink. It's hard with my light because it's flashing it, but like this Barbie pink, like it's so cute. And they sent me with, ooh, I should show these. I always forget. They sent me with this page overlay. It's beautiful. And then, like, there's some other cuteness, but I love this little postcard is pink, like Wisteria. So we have Ellie, who is a nanny for Raphael, and nannies his son, Nico. Now, if you read Love Redesigned, which I do recommend, I've already had people asking, because when you give a book a 5-star, people tend to forget about the books beforehand, and they just want to read the one. I gave the first book 4.5 stars. I loved that one as well. It's the whole reason I anticipated this one. So when you hear me gush about this one, you should start with the first one, okay? You can look up my review on Goodreads. I adored that book. It's why I love Lauren Asher, and I will keep reading her now, okay? All right, enough of me setting that up. But we find out in that book about Raphael's son, Nico, who has a degenerative eye issue. He will be going blind. And Ellie has been his nanny for a little while now. It's very difficult to nanny for Raphael because he's very hard on the nannies. And the reason why she stayed is she loves Nico. She loves him so much. So I thought this was unique because it starts with her being the nanny. And then very early on, there's a mistake that she makes, which, while Nico does get hurt from this mistake that she makes, okay, which, number one, speaking as someone who is a nanny, I do part-time nanny for one of my friend's kids. The panic that I would have felt as well is just awful. But there's a mistake she makes that leads to him getting hurt. To be fair, I believe that this would have still happened even if she hadn't made that mistake. But it's because she made the mistake and then has to admit it to Raphael when they get to the hospital with Nico. He is just like, that's it. This is the proof that I need to get rid of her. Because the thing that gave me such complex feelings, because here's the thing, Raphael, he's very much is an asshole at the beginning of this. But what is clear underneath it, and what's clear to her, what makes you willing to put up with it, is his absolute passion and devotion for his child. You know, he will do anything to protect Nico, and Nico has been pulling away from him because he sees how much his disease is hurting his dad, and so he doesn't want his dad to see it, which is just this sweet little baby boy, this sweet baby boy. And so he has curled into Ellie and just loves Ellie, and she's his friend and just loves her. And so when Raphael like lashes out at Ellie for this mistake, it puts them all in a tough situation because he's just like, get out, I don't want you here, you're fired, bye-bye. And Nico is like, no. So this all happens in like the first act of this book. And you just see him being an asshole again and again. But it's also so heartbreaking because he isn't an absent father. He's a busy single dad. He's a billionaire. He's running company. But he is attentive and loves his son. And so to see his son pulling away from him, it just guts him. And he also has a lot of damage from his past. Like, we find out some really heavy things about both Nico, because he did end up being kind of raised by his cousins. Like, he grew up as like a brother to Julian, the hero from the first one, but they still lived the first years of their lives very differently. And so Raphael has some, trust issues and some things that make him very difficult in the beginning of this book, right? Like, it was a struggle, but I remembered how I felt about Love Redesigned, and that Julian was frustrating for a long time too. But you get these thoughts from Raphael about how much, not just attracted to Ellie, okay, because I'll get into it, like, not just attracted to her, but how much he loves her spirit and just this being about her. He thinks every part of her is beautiful, but he doesn't want to love again. He has an ex-wife that burned him really bad, and so he lashes out, which normally would annoy me, okay? Like, it normally would annoy me, and it might annoy you. It might. But two things win him from it. Well, more than two, but two main things. One, his devotion to Nico, and that it just tears his guts out, that he can't fix this for his son, that he can't make things better or easier for him. It just tears his guts out. And number two, the way he thinks about Ellie. So I put up actually a YouTube short, which has done really well, which is awesome. It did really well here, where I shared a quote from this. And I also put it in my Goodreads review. But it's about how, like, even when they're not like having any romantic feelings yet, there is a dinner that they're all gonna go to together, and he sees her come out in her gown, and he just is like, there's this thought in his head where he's like, I became a man racing against time to soak in every bit of her before she caught me staring and I'd have to turn away. But God, she's ethereal. That is his thoughts about this woman. It's not about how hot her boobs look in it. It's not how much he'd want to smack her ass, but he has to hold back. He sees this woman as the most beautiful woman he's ever met because of her love for his son, because of her just genuine positivity that though he's scared of it, he also wants to bask in it. So, like, the angst of this, it hurts you, but it's also, like, so hopeful. And even though we're in this, we're losing time for Nico to see the things that they do for him. Like, what fully won me over, this happens very soon in the book, and it's also why I was willing to put up with him, okay? Because he's not an asshole forever, but it is a while, right? It is a little bit of this book where he's an asshole. But they're planning this big trip to Hawaii so that Nico can have a bunch of big, bright memories to always have when he can't see anymore. And they decide Hawaii is the best place to do that because there's just all this, everything's beautiful there. The flowers, the nature, the greenery, the experiences are all so beautiful. And so this billionaire, who we would all do it too if we had unlimited money, he plans this like 2-week-long vacation so that his son can just soak up all of these memories. And he really doesn't want to share it with Ellie. And that's kind of this thing in the beginning. He's like, it's just supposed to be time for him and Nico. He's putting all of his work on the side so he can do this. But Nico loves Ellie and wants him to come. So anyway, I'm talking through too many things. But just that, when that's shared with us, that's the reason they're going to Hawaii. It's not just rich people having their vacation. It's so that Nico can soak up memories for when he's blind. Like, Come on, you guys. It's beautiful. And I know I'm like crying about it. This book isn't that sad. It's not. Like, we know that this is coming for Nico, but like they're preparing for it. They're not digging their heads in the sand. Like, they're both learning, like everyone's learning Braille. They're, you know, already setting some things up for him to be good so that his life isn't going to be, you know, completely made small by it, but there are some things you'll lose. And so, yes, that's a bittersweet feel, but we don't dwell on that in this. We don't, like, yeah, we don't revel in the sadness of it and make it torturous. It's just, it's there, and it does add stress to certain things, but it also adds like big joy to things. Like, so the other part of it I need to mention, I'm sorry, I'm going on and on forever, but so Ellie is a songwriter and a musician, and there is a storyline having to do with her where her songs and things she had worked on with a friend were actually stolen from her, and she hasn't been getting credit for the songs she's been writing for the past like decade or something like that, and she's really let that kind of steal her love of music. But she's been teaching Nico different instruments, and you know, instruments he'll still be able to play when he can't see someday. So there's just all these things that they're doing so that his life will still be full. You know, it's not like he's dying. It's not like this is terminal. It's just inevitable that he will lose his sight. So anyway, I found it to be very powerful. I found that to just like, and again, once we crack his egg, like once we like get into the shell inside, not only are the thoughts he has about Ellie and about his son, but the grand gestures, this man, there's nobody who can do grand gestures like a billionaire. Like, we know it, we know it. So, okay, that's enough. I want you to read this. I would love if you'd start with Love Redesigned, but if you are like, I want this book you're talking about, then start with Love Unwritten, absolutely. But I think you'll want to read about Julian and Dahlia as well. They're wonderful, but this was great. The way I'm talking about this one, do I think this is a 6-star? I don't know. We're going to keep it at a 5 because this is a very slow burn. There is that too. There's a very slow burn to this. There's also a bit of yo-yoing that he does. As I said, he has trust issues, and he does lash out whenever he feels insecure. So those were some things that got to be a lot, but I loved him. So there are, quite a few trigger warnings for this one. All right. So something else with Ellie, which we didn't even touch on. She previously would self-harm, and there is a lot of discussion of that. She's very self-conscious of the places on her body where she would self-harm. So know about that too. There's parental abandonment, parental neglect, the degenerative eye condition we talked about, childhood food insecurity, and compulsive eating. Now, this isn't the compulsive eating or, binging. I don't actually want to spoil where that is, but just know that if you have if you have disordered eating, stuff like that, that might be tough. But the person who has disordered eating and food insecurity, I think, might surprise you. So, all right. Enough of that. Let's move on to some other books here. So I read, as I had mentioned, a Daddy Kink Daisy Jane. I read Unexpected by Daisy Jane. So this is book 1 in a taboo duet. I had bought this from her website last month or so, and I wanted to get to it, so it was on my TBR for this month. And this one, as I said, is a Daddy Kink, and this was a really kind of build-up book, so there actually wasn't much smut in this one at all. They were really building towards it. But our characters in here, we have, let's see, what are their names here? We have Gianna and Salvatore, and Gianna's mother ODs in the beginning of this. So yeah, heavy topics. And Salvatore, at the time of her mom's death, is actually married to Gianna's mom. He lives in Vegas. He helps run a high rollers club there. So Gianna's mom was actually one of his, one of the ladies who worked there and builds up the patrons and gets them to spend money and everything. And he's the one who contacts Gianna and tells her what happened and helps her get to Vegas so that they can deal with it. Now, there's some weird reasoning around why he was married to her mom, and then like he was actually in the process of getting it annulled because I don't want to go into all the details of that. It takes too long of this book. But basically the way that this leads into daddy kink is that he just wants to take care of her. She's in a really tough place. Like, she doesn't have anyone now that her mom's dead, which her mom was already pretty neglectful. And I mean, her mom was a user, and so there was already a lot of pain there, and then to just lose her mom and to lose like so much on top of it was a lot. And Salvatore just really wants to be there for her. So through this book, it's them like communicating back and forth, her deciding where she's going to live, what she's going to do now, and then by the end of this one, they are going to try a DDLG relationship, not age play wise, but just like she's going to be his little girl and he's going to be her daddy and just help her. And they are in lust with each other is the thing that happens in a lot of Daisy Janes. But I am looking forward to the second half, which I can't remember what the second one is called, but Unexpected is this first one. And the next one is supposed to be them like working their way through it all and everything. So I will continue. Now, a couple caveats. One, you cannot buy this anywhere except her website. So that is why I bought physical copies. This is out of print. You cannot purchase it on Amazon. So I'm sorry that I'm sharing and reviewing a book that might be difficult for you to get. She has limited copies on her website still. But when she had a sale after Reader's Take Denver, she had a sale of a bunch of her books, which she does have a sale going on right now too. So check out her Instagram if you want to know about that. But I decided I wanted to buy this duet because I maybe wanted to read it someday. I really love how she does kink and all that goodness. And I was like, well, if I don't buy it now, I might not get it. So again, I apologize if you aren't able to get this, but I'm still going to review it for you. Maybe you'll find a used copy somewhere or something. But yeah, I ended up giving this one just a 3.5 though. I feel like it was missing a lot, but it is the first half of a duet. So we'll see how I feel when I get to the second half, which I hopefully will read either this month or next month. And it honestly didn't have too much spice in it yet either because they are building up to it. So it's just like a 2.5. And then yeah, death of a parent and like talk of an overdose and stuff are the trigger warnings for it. Okay, so then I reread Wed to the Lich by Layla Faye. I annotated this for one of my patrons. So this was a quick little reread here. This was a book that I really enjoyed previously. I kept it at a 5-star, even though I think that it didn't hold up quite as well because once I knew, now going into it like knowing everything ahead of time, it wasn't quite as powerful. It was just actually like really hard to see. But this was a really powerful little novella. So this is part of the Arranged Monster Mate series. This one's like book 8 in it. This was a series that Layla Faye and 2 other authors did together. And it's basically these different monsters can find a human mate because there is this like matching service, and the human females who usually need money or they need a safe place to leave or they're just interested in being paired with a monster can sign up for this program. And this is one our heroine really needs to escape the situation that she's in. She is a ballerina. She is very like sick and unhealthy from being kind of like bullied basically into an eating disorder. Like, she thinks anything she eats will make her fat, will make her ugly. So like, it's very heavy. If you struggle with, again, like disordered eating and of the anorexia nervosa type, this will be very triggering. Like, I don't even suffer from it, and it was very triggering. The lies that she's been told about her body that she now believes is crazy. But then we have Virgil, who is a lich, who is very feared by everyone. He is this scary, like, death-like person, like, being, but he wants a mate, like, so badly, and so he's willing to get one this way. And all he wants to do is just love her. He finds her to be so beautiful, and he just wants to keep her forever. But when he notices she's not eating and her life force is dwindling, he knows he must do something drastic to shake her out of this and try to help her realize that he's not going to lose her. she can't just not eat and expect to live. Like, she has to do something. So I thought this was interesting because it takes an interesting look at like an eating disorder from a magical perspective of like, it's just facts, like you need to eat to live and you're beautiful to me and I'm the only person's opinion that counts because I'm your husband and I say you're perfect and so you need to take care of yourself. So it's still very heavy, and I haven't dealt with that type of an eating disorder. I have my own forms of disordered eating and it's not with not eating. So just don't go into this if those are issues for you. Just don't. But again, I kept this at a 5-star because I still think it's very powerful for being a novella and for what it is. And it's a 2 on the spice scale. And yeah, the trigger warnings, you got it. There is the anorexia nervosa, death, body dysmorphia, yeah, it's a heavy one. Okay, then I also reread Not a Hero and annotated it. And this one is book 1 in the Sons of the Survivalist. I've talked about this series many, many, many times, so we'll keep it quick. This is the start of a quartet that is about 4 adopted brothers. They were all adopted by this retired Army sergeant who came across them when he was in California. These were 4 boys that were in foster care, and they were in a very bad situation. And he actually rescues them from being assaulted by the guy who is their foster parent, but is a total creep. And he offers to take them off the grid, to take them to Alaska and raise them as his sons. He basically is kidnapping them. That's what he's doing, because they just disappear off of, it's not like the child services was going to give 4 boys to this guy, which, I mean, you'll wonder why, because they gave him to this other guy who's a creep. At least Sarge is, a veteran or whatever. But then we skip ahead to modern day and, dropping bookmarks. And Sarge has actually self-exited because he has cancer and he was not going to be someone who let it take him. So yeah, he does self-exit himself in the beginning. And Gabe, who has been living in one of their cabins, like keeping to himself, 2 of his brothers come and tell him he needs to come back to town because Mako left them a mandate and something that they're supposed to do. So he left them with a goal. Let me see if I can find it here. And so I'm going to read it to you because it basically explains what's happening in this whole series. It says, "My boys, the greatest pride I have in my life is you 4. And if I did nothing else worthwhile in my life, getting you out of LA and into Alaska was worth everything. I learned the hard way that after leaving the military, a man can get lost, that he needs to either fight for something or build something. My inheritance to you is this, a new mission. Welcome to Rescue Alaska. Guess what, men? You own half of the town. Death has been a part of your lives. Time to create something instead. Bring this town back to life. That's an order." So that is the setup of the series. They're all 4 of them are, although we only see 3 in the beginning of the book because Hawk is still kind of in the military and assassin stuff that he's doing and doing mercenary work, but we'll meet him by the end of this book. And we have Bull, who owns a few of the businesses that are like, he owns a bar in town that they're getting set up. And then we have Cazador, who is a nurse and he runs the clinic in town. And then we have Gabe, who we asked to be our part-time sheriff. And so he's going to be the law in this town to start with. Now, a lot of the people aren't super welcoming to them. They don't know that these are Sarge's sons because, they've been away. They've been living their lives before Sarge passed. And I mean, at least Gabe in this one, he's very reluctant to do it. He's kind of tired of people. That's why he was living in the middle of nowhere and just choosing to be there. And now he's dragged back into town because he feels that he owes Mako. He feels that he owes him for the wonderful life that he gave them. So that's where he's at. And then we have Audrey, who is actually on the run. She's a Chicago librarian who discovers a horrendous crime, and she wakes to an assassin in her bedroom. And so, injured and terrified, she flees, and she covers her trail every inch of the way with a new name, a new ID, and a new home. So she learns to survive and rescue, and she begins to fall for the town and the chief of police. But she's hiding who she's running from and why. She was a researcher at the librarian, and she was helping out this, I can't remember if he was like a scientist or a guy or whatever, and she stumbles across information she shouldn't have. So that's why she's on the run. And then, yeah, that starts us off with this one. I'll be rereading these the next few months because one of my patrons, Allie, also loves Mako's boys like me, and she wants them annotated. So it was great to revisit for sure. Okay, then I read The Dagger of Marotti. I'm probably totally mispronouncing that, but this is by That Opera Diva, and this was a fan fiction, and I finally squeezed one in. I was reading one not too long ago, and I DNF'd it. It was a Snape and Harry, and it just wasn't, I was so sad. It just wasn't vibing for me. But this one is a Lucius and Hermione, and it is a, Hermione has been stabbed with a blood-cursed dagger by Bellatrix, and now she is slowly dying. And so unless she can marry either a Black or a Malfoy and become one of them, technically by the law, like her blood becomes one of them, she will die. And the ministry actually finds out about, they're trying to help her any way they can, and they actually reach out to Lucius because he is the only available Malfoy left. The only Black line that's left is Teddy, and, he's a baby. We can't marry Teddy. And there is Draco, but he's actually gay in this world, so we weren't going to push him into doing this. And then there's Lucius, who is still under house arrest at the manor. And so they reach out to him and they offer him release on the condition that he marry Hermione and help her. Now, there are a few more hoops that still have to be jumped through, because also the very best way to make sure the dagger stops its work is for them to have a baby. Because if she actually creates another Malfoy, that will really end it. Blood magic, it's a thing as it is. But also, for her to become a Malfoy, it isn't just as simple as a regular marriage. She has to enter kind of a blood contract with him to try to supersede the blood magic of the dagger. So this was really intense. The tags for it list it as a lot darker than I found it. I'm not saying it's not dark, because we do have some flashbacks to what happened to her. And we also have, like, the implications of her being subjugated to him. But also, like, this Lucius doesn't do anything nefarious with it. There's just, like, thoughts that he has about doing it. So I didn't find it to be as heavy as, like, the tags warned me it was. I enjoyed this. It was a slow burn. Marriage, a forced marriage, and, like, forced proximity of them living together. And yeah, I gave it 4 stars. It was a 3 on the spice scale. But I mean, there is an attempted rape, not by him, obviously. There's drugging, there's torture, and there's some PTSD. So be careful of those. But it wasn't awful, is what I'm saying. Okay, then I listened to Sinful Vows by Deborah Garland. This book is already out. This is actually a prequel to the Astoria Royals, which I read the first one for the Mafia Readathon. I listened to that audiobook, but I think like through book 6 are already out. I'm just waiting and getting the audios as they are available because I'm liking those. This one was narrated by Lexi Evans, DB West, and Troy Duran in duet format, so very nice. And this one was only a novella length, but it had some issues for me. Now, I was pretty excited about it because, again, I liked the first book I read, and this one's the prequel. And this one has a weird, like, fake incest going on, and the heroine actually tortures the hero with this, and I didn't really appreciate it. So this one is a one-night stand, happens 5 years ago. These two hook up at a pub, basically, and have a great night, don't share names. He goes back to America. She lives in Ireland. The accents were pretty fun in this. She lives in Ireland. He lives in America, but his like family is from Ireland, right? This is a mafia romance. And now we skip ahead 5 years later, and he's trying to make an alliance with another family. Now, this family, the Italian family, are the ones we see in like the regular series, so I recognized a few of the names. But he doesn't have any more female like family members to offer. One of his sisters dead. One of the other sisters actually fell for somebody else, and they let her marry that guy. And then we have like Ewan is trying to find someone. Well, he discovered recently that he has a half brother. There's a bastard brother that they didn't know about, and the dad has like kept tabs on. This was before he had married the mom, so it's not like it was a cheating relationship. It's just he wasn't a purebred son or whatever. But because of the way things are at now, and also things are a lot more progressive than they were when they discovered that this, you know, half brother has a daughter, he's like, oh, well, maybe I'm going to go over there, meet my brother for the first time, and like take his daughter back to America. Well, the thing is, when he goes over to meet this daughter, it's the woman he had fucked in an inn 5 years ago. Now, he doesn't recognize her right away because it was pretty dark and all these things, and he slowly starts to remember her. Well, she remembers him because she was left with a baby, and she had no idea who this man was. Things have been very difficult for her having an illegitimate child, and the family's already pretty poor. And there's one thing that she doesn't tell him, even once he figures out who she is, feels horrified with himself because he fucked his niece 5 years ago and didn't know, which again, nobody would blame him for that part of it. But guess what? She doesn't tell him, and neither does her dad, because her dad doesn't know that these two had slept together, that she's adopted. They actually lost a daughter that they were pregnant with, and because of complications, the mom can have another baby. They actually adopted her. So it's a niece in name only. So there's that aspect. Also, he doesn't believe he can have kids. So when she finally shares with him that, yeah, it was me, and you left me with this baby, he's like, well, honey, I can't, I'm sterile. So it's one of those where he thinks he was sterile. And she was actually raped not long after her night with him. So now she thinks her daughter was from that guy or whatever. So part of the reason in her mind that she doesn't tell this man that they're not blood related is because she does want to be brought out of Ireland and brought to America. And her family wants that too. So yeah, that's enough. I've said enough. This is only a novella. There's still a lot more that happens in here. But this did not endear me to the heroine at all. Especially because, like, he still thinks they're blood related. And she continues to want to sleep with him. And I mean, he wants to sleep with her too. I'm not saying it's one-sided. But she keeps tempting him into fucking her. But she won't tell him that they're not blood related. So there's just a lot of shadiness all around. And by the end of this book, I was pretty over it. And this was only 200 pages. So this was an ALC, right? And I just did not have good feelings about it. I gave this one a 3-star because I just didn't have any, like, I don't know. I had sympathy for the heroine to a certain point, but I don't know. You don't continue to let a guy think that you are blood related once he finds out. And him, I'm like, dude, if she really was your blood niece, stop fucking her. Just keep it in your pants. You don't need anyone that bad. So the reasonings for it just didn't work with me. And like, I get it's trying to be taboo, but really it was just fucking tell him. You're lying to him in a really gross way. So I didn't feel good by the end of this one, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. So yeah, wasn't too happy with that. All right, and then the last book, which I finished last night, was The Ever Queen by L.J. Andrews. So I read The Ever King last week, really enjoyed it. Read The Ever Queen this week. I listened to the audiobook. This one was narrated by Lucy Rivers and Will Thorne. And yeah, I got this one in the Audible sale, so it was only a couple bucks. But I do believe if you get the Kindle Unlimited, it should only be like a $7 upgrade one, I think. And then I'm all caught up so I can read The Mist Thief. But anyway, this one continues the story of Livia and Eric. They are from, warring families. But in the first one, he kidnaps her, brings her to his land, and we find out a whole bunch of things. Like, I don't want to spoil the first book because this one directly follows it. You need to read the Ever King before the Ever Queen, and this is a duet about this couple. Now, I'm going to be reading The Mist Thief next, which I'm very excited for because I know which couple it's going to be now that I've read this. And I'm so glad I read this duet because NerdFam, who so kindly and generously sent me The Mist Thief, they said like, oh, this is the third book, but you don't have to read the first two. And I was like, I'm going to try to read them. And thankfully, because of the audiobooks, I was able to. Because this book, The Mist Thief, is directly set up at the end of the Ever Queen with who our heroine will be and who the hero will be. So it's going to be an arranged marriage in that one. And I'm so glad I got the backstory of the characters because I would be very lost. So I really enjoyed this. This one, they start it in a, like, they're very much in love, okay? Like, in the first book, not to spoil anything, but that enemies to lovers has happened. And then there was a cliffhanger at the end of the first one where something really bad happened. And so I was like, oh my God, I need to know. And it was great. I really liked it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I took off a little half of a star because there was a lot of characters and I was really confused sometimes, which again, partially was probably my fault because if you read the ebook or the physical book, like, they do have a cast of characters and stuff at the back of the book. So I'm hopeful that when I read The Mist Thief, because I have a physical copy of that one, I'll be able to follow along a little bit better. But I gave it 4.5 stars, and this was a 3 on the spice scale. They did keep up the spice for a good amount in here for sure. There's trigger warnings for an attempted assault, not by the hero, a kidnapping, not by the hero this time, and a few other kind of dangerous situations. So this is also sold as like it's pirates meet Vikings is kind of this world she's created, and I'm vibing with it for sure. I can't wait to read the next one. Absolutely. So there you go. Those are all the books and rereads that I read this week. Also, as I said, don't forget to check out the Etsy shop. I only make 1 or 2 of these computer sleeves at a time. Make sure you check out all the cute new patterns. It really helps me out here. And we'll see you next time, friends. Bye.